Chag Sameach. Sending love, strength, and health from Yerushalayim, where we miss you. I wanted to think together about the third diber, lo tisa. I'll mention that in Hebrew, we call the 10 Commandments Aseret HaDibrot, from the family of dibur, talking, conversation. And so they have more of an undertone of sayings and statements rather than commandments. And the role of the third diber is to make sure that we do not humiliate people around us, in particular those who we think of as different. It also paints a path meant to avoid this kind of behavior. Lo tisa et shem Hashem Elohecha lashav. Do not carry, do not hold, do not use God's name in vain. What does this mean? In what situations might I use or carry God's name in vain? And what might be the conditions that can help me avoid such behavior? I think that the description of Moshe going up the mountain and coming back down the mountain, holding the luchot, the tablets, the law, the covenant, might have insight into lo tisa. The description is found in chapter 34 of Shmot, of Exodus, and opens with God's invitation to Moshe to come up the mountain. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, psol lecha shne luchot avanim karishonim. Carve out for yourself the 2 tablets like you did originally, and I will write on those tablets the things that I spoke. Be prepared early in the morning, come up the mountain, and come up alone. No one should accompany you as you come up the mountain. And now comes the moment of meeting. And this meeting has 5 steps. And interestingly, 2 of them are the act of calling out a name, of using God's name. And I think just this legitimate calling of name might teach us something about the non-legitimate lo tisa. And here are the 5 steps that are found in 2 verses. Vayered Hashem be'anan. God comes down in a cloud. Vayityatzeh imo sham. He stands there with him. Vayikra b'shem Hashem. And he calls out the name of God. Vayavor Hashem al panav. God passes across him. Vayikra Hashem Hashem. And once again he calls out the name of God. So what do we understand and what remains unclear? God came down and stood with Moshe. That's clear. And it's also clear that there is a togetherness. Vayityatzeh imo sham. They're standing there together. And this togetherness precedes the nesiat shem, the calling out, vayikra b'shem Hashem, the calling out of the use of the name of God. But Moshe and God are so entwined in this description that it's unclear which one of them is speaking. Who is proclaiming God's name? And the confusion continues. Vayavor Hashem al panav, right? In step number 4, God passes before Moshe. They're standing face to face, because it's God, maybe we should say they're standing God to face. And then there is again, Vayikra, a calling out of a name, Nesiat Shem. And it seems that the outcome of the passing by the revelation is a calling out of the name. But was it Moshe who, seeing God, called out his name? Or was it God who, revealing himself, also revealed his name? That remains unclear and we don't know. But it seems that the act of carrying name is legitimate, permissible, organic, when there's a closeness, when there is proximity, when there's revelation, when there's intimacy. Intimacy leads or turns into the use of a name. A legitimate, a non-false, a non-in-vain use of name. And Moshe's response or request is obvious. Im na matzati chen be'enecha, if I found favor in your eyes, please continue walking in our midst. Continue being close to us. So closeness and revelation bring to a legitimate use of name, which brings to a want for more closeness, and so on and so forth. Now this is the lesson of the scene up at Mount Sinai. But Mount Sinai is only arena number 1, because arena number 2 is taking place at the foot of the mountain. And if you remember, there was a first attempt to bring down these tablets, which failed, right? Moshe smashed the luchot first time round. And now we're here in the second time, and you can imagine the tremendous tension at the bottom of the mountain. The Jewish people, there's excitement. Will this attempt succeed? And then Moshe comes, and you see him approaching from afar. I imagine coming out of the cloud, carrying the luchot, slowly walking, and he looks scary. He looks scary. And the verses describe Moshe and Bnei Israel's response. Vayhi beredet Moshe me'ar Sinai. As Moshe came down the mountain holding the tablets, he did not know that the skin of his face was beaming when he spoke to him. And Aharon sees, and Bnei Israel see, that Moshe's skin of his face is beaming, and the people are afraid to approach him. They see and they're afraid. All of Bnei Israel, even Moshe's brother, difference, his beaming face, the skin of his face, difference creates fear, which creates distance. Now we don't really know what Moshe looks like. It's not clear if these are light beams coming out of his face or physical, real beams. But what is clear is that the difference in his face creates fear, which creates distance. And Moshe does what I think many of us wind up doing when we feel different. He covers himself up. He hides. Vayiten hamasveh al panav. He puts a cover on his face. He deals with other people's fear of him. And when Moshe puts the cover on his face, he's actually not only hiding his face, but also hiding who he is and his experiences, and particularly his meeting with God. A reality in which people have to hide their face, hide who they are, is a reality devoid of God. It's a reality where meeting is not possible. But there's hope. There are moments when Moshe takes off the cover, and those are moments of talking, of meeting, of conversation, both with God and with people. When there is meeting, exposure is possible. Vayikra lehem Moshe. Moshe calls out to them, and they come back. Aharon and the elders, v'achre also Bnei Israel come to him to talk to him. And so this sums up the warning of Lo Tisa. It's not a call not to use God's name, but rather a directive how to use God's name, and maybe names in general. The circumstances that enable Nesiat Shem, a calling out of name, are moments of meeting when one is not required to cover oneself, but can be exposed with their whole being present. Lo tisa et Shem Hashem lashav. Do not carry, hold God's name in vain, is an invitation to dare create circumstances that legitimate the proper use of name. When there's listening, talk, meeting, when we do not ask each other to hide aspects that make us uncomfortable, aspects that are foreign, but rather moments in which we can see difference and not fear it, moments when we want to remain together as unique individuals, then we can use the name. Chag Sameach.